For today's lesson, we are writing the equation for the information that we are given. So we have f of x equals a times b raised to the x power. So your f of x is your y-coordinate or your total. Your a is your initial amount. Your b is your constant, and the x is the exponent. And remember that exponent only affects the b value. So if you were to had to calculate the y values or the f of x, you have to do b raised to its power, get an answer, and then multiply it by the a. So we're gonna do from a table, from ordered pairs, and from a graph. Okay, so starting with the table, so we have information that they have given us. The first thing that I can identify here, because it is the y-intercept, is when x is 0, its y, or the f of x attached to that x is 0, is your a, which is your initial amount. Okay, so this right here, this 81, is your a. Okay, then you need to calculate, and you can use a calculator, your constant, and it has to be when you go from the y value to the previous y value. So you're dividing, so we're going to do 54 divided by 81. Okay, then the next one that you're going to do is 36, because that's the one that's further down the line, divided by 54. And what you may notice is that these are less than one whole. That's why I chose this one, so that you understand that your b is not always a whole number. Sometimes it is a fraction. So I'm going to calculate this, and they should be coming out to the same exact number. So if I have my calculator here, and I do the first one, 54 divided by 81, I get 0.66666, which as a fraction is 2/3. Okay, let's try the next one. So the next one is 36 divided by 54. It should be the same. 36 divided by 54. And it is the same. And let's just double check the next one. Okay, 24 divided by 36. 24 divided by 36. Oops, wrong button. 24 divided by 36. Okay, so I get 0.6666. And I'm going to use a fraction, because when we use exponents, it's a lot easier to flip those and be able to visualize. So this is 2/3. This is 2/3. This is 2/3. So as you can see, it's constantly dividing to 2/3. So that is our b, our constant. So when we go ahead, so this is our b. So when we go ahead and make the equation, we are going to write our f of x, and that equals our a, which we discovered was 81. We are putting parentheses because remember, the b is the only thing that is attached to the exponent. We discovered that our constant was 2/3, and it is raised to the x power, and we leave that as x because in our information, x is the value that constantly changes. So when I put in 2/3 to the 0 power, I get 1, and 1 times 81 is 1, or 81. When I put into the first power, I get 2/3, and when I take 81 times 2/3, I get 54. So you would multiply 81 times 2, then divide all that by 3. Okay, and that's how you can multiply by a fraction. Okay, so that's our equation, is f of x equals 81, parentheses, 2/3, end your parentheses, and raise that, just the parentheses, to the x power. Okay, now from ordered pairs. So this is what we were working on this morning. We had these particular ordered pairs. So they have given us this information, or we have gone on a graph and pulled this off of a graph ourselves. So what we need to do is put them into our table, and so I'm going to do that. So I have my x, and I have my f of x, which is my y value. Okay, so my first point is 0, 3. My second point here is 112. My third point over here is 248. Then I had 3 192, and I have 4 768. Okay, so here's my information. So again, we have to put it into f of x equals a times b raised to the x power. So my a, again, is when my x is 0. This is my initial amount. These were, when we talked about COVID, these were the amount of people that got infected initially. So this is our a. So we know that our equation is going to be f of x. We're going to be using the 3. So the 3 is the a. We're going to set up our parentheses, and yes, it's raised to the x power, and that stays as an x. So now we need to figure out what this is divided. So I'm going to do 12 divided by 3, which I know is 4. 48 divided by 12, which I know is 4. 192 divided by 48 is 4, and 768 divided by 192 is 4. Since it's consistent, that's why we name it a constant. It's constantly being divided by 4, actually multiplied by 4 to go up, or divided by 4 to go down. So that is my constant, my b, and I stick it into the parentheses. And my equation is f of x equals 3 times 4 raised to the x power. So if I were to go backward and they gave me this and they said, okay, do this, and what are your x values? If I had an x value of a 0, 4 to the 0 power is 1, and 1 times 3 is 3. If I put in a 1, 4 to the first power is 4, and 4 times 3 is 12. If I raise it to a second power, 4 to the second power is 16, and 16 times 3 is 48. And so on, and it matches what we did over here. Okay, then moving on, if you have a graph, because you do have a graph on your assignment today. So from a graph, what you need to make sure to do is find the points on the graph that are actually in the corner of the graph paper square, so you know that this is definitely 0, 4. This is definitely 1, 2. This is definitely 2, 1. And that's what you start putting into a table. So I know I have my x value and my f of x value. That's my y. So I had 0, 4. I had a 1, 2. Okay, and then I have a 2, 1. Okay. So when you're looking at this, you're looking at the constant, or you're looking at the constant going down. So 2 divided by 4 is not 2, it is a half. And 1 divided by 2 is a half. So in this case, your constant, or your b, is a half. And your initial amount is when x is 0, there's a 4 here, so this is your a. So when you put your equation together, you have f of x equals your initial value, which was a 4, and then your constant is, that we discovered down here, is a half, and that is raised to the x power. So your equation for this particular graph right here, if they were to give you a graph, you need to pull those points off that you can actually see where they are, unless they already label them for you. We put them in a table. We find the a, which is when x is 0. We do the math on the y's. 2 divided by 4, 1 divided by 2. We discovered the constant was a half. We plug it in as our b, and we raise that to the x power. So this would be the equation for this graph.